Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McLean. So good to be on with you. Praise be to God. You know, normally I'm not complaining. I'm explaining. Okay, there's a diff. Normally, I would say, golly gee whiz, what's going on with our tech? We lost our YouTube's live stream there. I'm not sure what happened, but we are streaming to Rumble, to Twitter, Facebook, and other places. You can find the links to all of our live streams on our website. Go to thestationofthecross.com/ACT. You can find the live stream there and the links. thestationofthecross.com/ACT. Edward Pentin joins us, a reporter from the National Catholic Register. He also has a website, edwardpentin.co.uk, and you should check it out. I'll post a link to today's article, Pope Francis's Revealing Decade. Good morning to you, Edward Pentin.
Good morning, Joe.
Really appreciate your time today. Looking back 10 years, there were a lot of articles on the 10-year anniversary for His Holiness Pope Francis, and yours is one that did catch my attention. A very revealing decade indeed. How do you see it?
Yes, well, this is something I've thought about for a while, which is that Pope Francis, through his pontificate, either deliberately or inadvertently, has revealed a lot of what's been going on in the Church for the last 60 years, a lot of the problems within the Church, a lot of the corruptions, whether it's doctrinal, structural, or financial, or various other, or moral even, liturgical too. Now, I don't think he's necessarily, as I say, deliberately done this, but I think through his pontificate and through the way he's basically allowed this to happen, a lot's been revealed, a lot that needed to be revealed probably in order to reform the Church, probably for the next pontificate or pontificates down the line. So that's why I think there's I think from other people I've spoken to as well, there's a certain grace there that I think a providence that the Lord is using this pontificate in order to bring that revelation of these corruptions in order to reform the Church.
One thing you said in your article that really caught my attention was the Pope never talks about the crisis of faith. I mean, I think that's mind-blowing considering how many times have we seen video or photography of the circus at his Wednesday audiences, or, you know, people visiting him from all over the world, like President Biden, Nancy Pelosi, both Catholic, who are, strong supporters of abortion and other crimes against humanity. And yet he never seems to talk about the crisis of the faith. Why do you think that is?
Yes, I mean, this is the point that Father Nicola Baux pointed out. He's a consultant theologian, used to be consultant to the Vatican under Benedict, and I think he made that observation, and I think he talks about, I mean, what he says that Francis talks about more is sort of the French revolutionary ideals of fraternity and equality, but these aren't these aren't really of the faith. These are sort of revolutionary ideals, and when he talks, he never talks, or he has talked occasionally about the crisis of faith, but it's been very rare. And when you look at the documents that he's said or the speeches that he gives, he'll never, especially when he speaks extemporaneously, he'll never talk about the crisis of the faith, never like John Paul or Benedict used to quite frequently, and try to give warnings to the faithful that, the secularism and the dangers of secularism. But you don't get that with Francis, and who knows? I mean, the people I spoke to in that interview didn't really give an answer as to why he doesn't want to do it. But there's certain theories, of course, out there. The fact that he's sort of in the pocket of globalists and so forth, and being controlled by certain ideologies and those around him. But those are theories, but we don't really know why.
Being a journalist based in Rome, what is the popular opinion of Pope Francis there in Rome? What do the citizens, what do Catholics in Rome and Italy think of His Holiness Pope Francis, especially in light of the last 10 years?
Well, I think there's always in Italy a love for the Pope. There's a great respect for the papacy that it's still there even now, and I think you get very little criticism publicly of the Pope. But privately, I think there is unease among many Catholics, especially in the priesthood, in the hierarchy, even those perhaps of a liberal persuasion. That I think there's quite a lot of disorder and low morale, especially in the Curia. And so I think there's quite a lot of unease about Francis, but it's not publicly said. It's sort of, they go along and don't want to publicly criticize him. So, but yeah, I think there is quite a lot of that around.
And then the ongoing financial scandals that we see that don't get resolved, whether it's the Vatican Bank or the Cardinal Becciu trial or whatever. And I think I read a report yesterday. They're opening a shopping mall to help alleviate some of the financial crises. So I guess I bring this up to say this is further tone deafness coming out of the Vatican in this regard. It's as though, I mean, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the summer of 2018, a lot of Americans stopped sending money to Peter's Pentin to the Vatican at that point. We were sort of fed up with it all. Even legatus stopped giving their tithe to the Vatican over this. Why does the Vatican, why does His Holiness seem to be tone deaf on those issues as well?
Well, I think they don't really listen a lot to what's happening they don't want to take leads from the media, for example. That's never been a Vatican way. They've always tried to do things their own way. And although they'll be monitoring what the press says, they don't want to take their cues from them. But I do think that they are aware of what's going on, but they, as I say, they want to do it their own way, and they listen to those who are around them, and they're not necessarily getting the best advice. It's been said for a long time that the Vatican could benefit a lot from having lay experts in there helping them with especially finances, and really to try to get them to deal with the issues at hand rather than dealing with them with people who aren't necessarily experts in the matters. People who had experience in the corporate world and could really help tighten finances and make things much more efficient. That was something that Cardinal George Pell, of course, wanted to do and did do up to a point. And to be fair, I think the finances has got more onto an even keel under Francis over these past 10 years. It's been a very up and down process. It's been a lot of forward and then back and advances and then regressions. But I think now it's actually doing quite well. And I think the old guard is disappearing, and the corruptions of the past do seem to be getting tackled. So there are good signs about in the Vatican concerning this particular area, I'd say.
I think a lot of commentators, I remember back 10 years ago when Francis came into the pontificate, and there's a term that got coined in those days called pope-splaining. And he would start to make statements, and a lot of commentators would pope-splain. They would explain, they would interpret his meaning in light of the Catholic faith. And then I saw a time, maybe it was around 2018 or so, the summer of shame with the McCarrick, that a lot of commentators stopped pope-splaining. They just said, I'm done. We're done with this. I find that very fascinating, and I'd love to get your take on this. 10 years into this, do you think we have figured him out, or is he still just really an enigma and a mystery? Some call him a Peronist, some call him a liberal. So, have we figured him out? What say you, Edward Pentin?
Up to a point, yes. I think we have. I think the Peronist label, does actually fit. He does act very much like a Peronist, in the sense that you don't know where he stands, and that's a particular aspect of Peronism, which is true, and he's true to it. But there, on the other hand, there's a lot we don't know, and he is unpredictable. We don't know what he's going to be doing, and he tends to be, rather capricious, and so it's very hard to understand or predict where he's going to go. But yeah, I think to some extent we do understand him. As I say, when you look at his background, particularly in Argentina, and the way he was formed in Argentina and under the Jesuits as well.
He's never been back to Argentina since he ascended to the throne. No trip. He's been to Mexico. He's been to South America. He's been all over the world.
Right.
He has not been to Argentina, his home country. How do we explain that? Like, why do you think he's not been home?
Well, I mean, there's various theories. Argentinian I spoke to not long ago said that he was, he's not liked there. I think the way he governed the archdiocese and as a priest, I think he made some enemies, and I think he's concerned that they're still there, and if he went back, it could be embarrassing. I'm not sure, but he says though that he wants to go back. He says that he's always wanted to go back, but he couldn't because of various problems and things that came up. But I think if he really wanted to go back, he would have gone back by now, and I think that's the consensus of a lot of people. So I think, yeah, I think there's a certain things there which he doesn't really want to go back to. But we'll see. Maybe he'll go this year, maybe next year. But that's certainly something he says he hopes to do. So we'll see if that happens.
Let's talk about trips. Do you think he'll go to Russia? That would be pretty monumental if the Pope goes to Russia. Do you think he has that to do?
Yeah, I think there are those are two big destinations he would like to go to: Russia and China. I think China is the bigger prize for him. I think he'd most like to go there. But yeah, I think he's certainly wanting to make those two trips. Yeah, we'll see. It's difficult to know right now. And of course, a lot of people wanted to go to Kiev and they go to Ukraine first, and he perhaps will try to do that first, and then go to Russia. But yeah, certainly it's something he wants to do. He's been very keen throughout his pontificate to try to break new diplomatic ground, and he's done it with Cuba and meeting Patriarch Kirill in Cuba back in 2018. So he's made some big steps, being the first pope to go to the Arab Peninsula. That was a huge historical first, and I think he likes to do that, to make these firsts as pope. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, it's certainly on the card. Certainly something he wants to do.
A lot of people have been taking bets. Is he going to retire? Is he going to die? I mean, his health wasn't looking good. He's had some pretty serious surgeries. He's gained a lot of weight over the past few years. As a guy who's lost a lot of weight, I know what that's like on the body. And then, of course, his mobility is severely, he's on a wheelchair most of the time now. So tell me about that. I mean, over the last 10 years, we've seen a lot in the medical and retirement category of his pontificate. He seems pretty resolute at this point. He's not going to retire. He's going to ride this thing to the end. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think it's far more likely that he's going to stick this out, and I think he enjoys the position. I think he wants to. He's got things he feels he wants to do and complete. I think those around him are very keen that he carries on at the moment, at least. And so, yeah, I think he'll continue. And I think his health, although he has put on weight, I think he's actually doing quite well. I mean, the other day, I think he was out of the wheelchair and he was, walking with a stick, but he was mobile.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I think he's doing okay. And I think, he's health-wise, I don't think it's anything really imminent that's going to cause him problems, I would say.
Wow. Well, glory be to God. I'm glad his health is not that serious. Praise be to God. But let's pray, I would say, for Pope Francis. You wrote a book. I mean, how much longer do you think he's got? You wrote a book on the next potential popes. You have the profiles in your book. We'll link to that as well. But last question. We have only seconds left. How many more years do you think he has, Edward Pentin?
Oh, it's anyone's guess, but could be 2, could be 5. Who knows? The Lord knows.
I wonder what Vegas has for odds on those. At any rate, Edward Pentin, I'm really grateful for your time today. Thank you for being on with us. Check out his website, edwardpentin.co.uk. We will link to it. God bless you, Edward. Have a great day. All right.